over the water flyers that were like remain American or to maintain claim to that property.
Right, and so the judge is saying that law is bogus because it contradicts the natural law. Essentially, it's like judicial review, but instead of appealing to the Constitution, you appeal to something more fundamental, the family upon which society is built. That's the mindset of the
So was the son only able to reclaim his mother's share?
Correct.
Okay.
The other two-thirds would be the father's, and he was duly demonstrated to be a loyalist. Yep. Boy, I'm going to turn you all into lawyers yet. Okay, we are about halfway through. Let's go to the XYZ of next. Once again, we have a version A and a version B. And here we go. Version A, protecting national security. Why do we have the Alien Sedition Acts? They're good things, they protect the nation. That's version A. Here's the story. Earlier in the 1790s, France experienced a bloody, chaotic revolution. By the late 1790s, the nation was stabilizing, but Napoleon had gone on the warpath against Britain. The United States, as a young nation, tried to stay neutral. Some Americans, however, had strong feelings in favor of Britain, and others had strong feelings in favor of France. John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, John Marshall, and other leaders of the Federalist Party saw Britain as a better role model for the United States. They thought the U.S. president should be somewhat like the British king. The U.S. Senate should be somewhat like, correct that to say, British House of Lords, the upper portion of Parliament, and the U.S. House of Representatives somewhat like the House of Commons. After all, Britain had been the greatest empire of the colonial period, and it was British philosophers who gave Americans their political ideas about liberty and freedom. By the way, there's a whole other irony that, in a sense, the Americans revolted precisely because they thought of themselves as British, you know, in their philosophy, you know, politics and everything. They thought they were kind of more British than Britain would be, and that's why they had to separate. Okay, but we're not in that era today, are we? Back to where we are. The Federalists recognized that national security requires economic stability, and they had reason to expect that favorable trade relations with Britain would ensure economic growth. The Federalists saw their political revivals in the Republican Party as a threat to America. Republicans criticized the British and admired the French, but the French government was corrupt and chaotic. Just look at how conniving the XYZ bribery attempt was, and we'll look at that too. The Federalists sought to protect American interests by steering clear of European wars, limiting immigration from Europe, authorizing the president to deport aliens back to Europe, that's the Alien Act, and preventing American presses from criticizing the U.S. government, and that is the Sedition Act. The Federalists did these things to keep America strong as a united nation that would preserve the benefits acquired through the Revolution. Raise your hand if you're saying my classroom materials go with version A, or go with the chair that sounds familiar. A few of you. Anything stick out worthy of particular comment here? Raise your hand if you see something on version A that you say, whoa, that's like backwards, the opposite of what I'm used to seeing in my book.
Well, it's what I see, but it's just one perspective.
Okay. So does the book provide both then? Okay, so we'll go to B, which is going to be the Republican perspective, and that's infringing upon rights. Are your books pretty balanced on this generally? Or do they seem to kind of lean one way? Pretty balanced? Okay. The Republican Party, led by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, saw things quite differently than the Federalists. France, not Britain, was their role model. Britain had denied Americans their rights for decades. That's why the Americans rebelled in 1776. During the Revolutionary War, France provided funding and troops so that America could win independence. France, too, had a revolution, tossing aside the monarchy and aristocracy of the past and welcoming a future of democracy and equality. Not to mention terror. True, the XYZ affair showed that not everyone in France was friendly toward the United States, but one should remember that Mr. X, Mr. Y, and Mr. Z were not genuine representatives of the French government. The real French government is friendly to the United States. Moreover, the United States promised to help the French when the two nations became allies during the War. France helped the United States win independence, and now it was America's time to repay the favor. America should help France against Britain. Unfortunately, the Federalist Party now controls the presidency, the Senate, and the House, as well as the judicial branch of government. The Federalist Party has enacted the Sedition Act, which violates the First Amendment rights to freedom of speech and freedom of the press. When Republicans are taken to court because of editorials they write in violation of that act, the judges, who are Federalists, ignore the First Amendment and find them guilty of sedition. The Federalists are becoming just as tyrannical as Britain was back in the colonial days. We skip page 9, which is your answer key. find page 10, I think it got stapled a little out of sequence. It should say primary sources and student worksheets for XYZ. So we're on page 10, and we start with a summary of the XYZ affair as reported by John Marshall and as paraphrased for middle school level by me. So hopefully it works. Okay. The French government did not want to meet with us Americans. The foreign minister's name is Talleyrand. He made us wait 3 whole months before we could meet with the French government. When we finally did meet, the government officials did not show up. Instead, 3 mysterious men, Misters X, Y, and Z, demanded that America do 3 things. Number 1, Adams must apologize for complaining about France to Congress. Number 2, Congress must approve a large loan of $12 million to the French government to fight against the British. And number 3, the U.S. must also pay a bribe of $250,000 to Talleyrand before the French government would even, talk about this. Commentary and questions. Number 1, did Marshall's report make them seem friendly or unfriendly? Well, unfriendly, and you can coach your middle schoolers in identifying specific examples thereof, right? Next, the Federalist Party generally had ill feelings toward France and thought Britain was a better role model for the United States. Jefferson's Republican Party looked at things just the opposite. Jefferson admired the French for their democratic spirit and disdained the British for its spoiled pumpkin. Number 2, the XYZ affair made France look bad in the eyes of American voters, so which political party do you think started to increase in its, the Federalists, right? Okay. And then you would explain because, well, they're the ones who don't like France either, right? So it justifies their view. Okay. Next, we move on to the Sedition Act from 1798. And you have a quotation from it there. Section 3, if any person shall write, print, utter, publish. I always like how they spell everything out, is what you're saying. It's like, well, I wrote it, I printed it, and I published it. So I guess I'm right. Okay. Any false, scandalous, and malicious writing or writings against the government of the United States, or either House of the Congress of the United States, or the President of the United States, or to excite against them, or either or any of them, the hatred of the good people of the United States, then such person shall be punished by a fine not exceeding $2,000 and imprisonment. Section 4, this act shall continue to be in force until the 3rd day of March, 1801 and no longer. Question 3, complete the chart. So, let's check it out. The House had a Federalist majority. Does the Sedition Act forbid people from criticizing this office? Yes. And the Senate?
Yes.
And the President?
Yes.
And the Vice President?
No.
He's not listed. Now, in a sense, he also served ex officio as President of the Senate, so I suppose he's kind of included in that capacity, but when he's just acting as the Vice President apart from the Senate? No. All right, number 4, complete the following sentence. The Sedition Act forbade people from criticizing the offices held by members of the blank party, Federalists, but allowed them to criticize an office held by a member of the Republican Party. Yeah, so who had a majority in Congress at this time? Who was the president who signed this law into effect? Which party dominated the courts that would oversee cases regarding this? Yeah, okay. Now, the next presidential election would be held in 1800. The newly elected president would be inaugurated on March 4, 1801. Depending on the outcome, that could be a Federalist or a Republican. Number 5, why do you think they decided to make the thing expire on March 4? So there you go. Any questions? So that would be a worksheet that I think probably favors version B, right? The Republican side of the story. And now we come to the First Amendment, 1791. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. By the way, I need to just pause here for a side note. How many of you have encountered the problem of students with cell phones that ring during